Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start at the outset. I'm an accountant. I value audits. My wife was an IRS auditor, so we need that. There's no doubt about it. Okay, you can argue legitimately, to what extent, how many auditors, how much we should spend on it. That's legitimate conversation. I do have to admit, though, every time I hear the chairman or the chairman of the Finance Committee say the word wealthy tax cheat, I think of the name Hunter Biden and all of the Biden family members who have been participating in his influence peddling grifts. I think it's interesting, as much as this hearing is emphasizing on audits, that when Senator Grassley and I were conducting our very legitimate investigation using our constitutional responsibility of oversight, when we were investigating tax cheating, influence peddling, money coming in, tens of millions of dollars from foreign entities to impact potentially U.S. policy. Democrat senators, our ranking members, not only frustrated, I would say obstructed our investigation by falsely claiming we were soliciting and disseminating Russian disinformation. Now, that just happened to parrot what we've now found out the FBI set up their Foreign Influence Task Force, what they were doing in their catch-and-kill operation, find derogatory information that was being developed by 40 confidential human sources, and then go kill it. Go say, no, don't look into that. Don't go down that investigatory hole, because that's Russian disinformation. So the question I have based on that, Professor Sarin, it's obvious we have a dual system of justice applied to tax compliance. When somebody is connected politically as Hunter Biden, when his investigatory team allows the statute of limitations to expire on the most serious tax evasion charges, what does that dual system of justice, what does that do in terms of taxpayer compliance?
So, Senator Johnson, I actually want to take a step even higher, but with your sort of theme of democracy and heart. In this country today, we have a two-tiered tax system, as you acknowledge. Your constituents who are wage earners are already paying everything that they owe, and a very small proportion of very wealthy individuals and large corporations have the opportunity to...
Okay, and that was your testimony. Again, I want you to speak to the fact that the president's son is largely skating because they allowed the statute of limitations to run. What does that do to compliance in terms of Americans' attitude toward that, Professor Hendren? I've got other things I need to get to here.
I have very little to say on Hunter Biden. It's a very small portion of the tax gap.
That is true, but it's a very large portion in terms of Americans' attitude toward our dual system of justice.
So
Mr. Edwards, what do you think that does in terms of the public opinion of complying with taxes when one wealthy, connected individual basically avoids prosecution?
I agree, and it shows a general problem. There's a huge IRS management problem. We ought to fix IRS management before anything else. The IRS, lost or destroyed 30 million tax returns in Ogden, Utah. They don't have a good explanation for that. The huge theft of thousands of high-end tax returns a couple years ago. There's a big management
politically motivated theft and then distribution to ProPublica. Okay, that's politically motivated. I want to turn to the solution here. Again, I'm all for auditing. We're always going to need it. The solution is simplifying and rationalizing our tax code. I developed this chart years ago. I think it's quite interesting. This goes back to 1959 and shows the top marginal tax rate. To what extent were we going to punish success, and then the extent to which we were successful at punishing success. It's remarkable. Over 60-some years, we've had as top tax rate as high as 91%, 70%, 50%, 28, 31, 39.6, 35. Now we're at 37%. But over that over 60-year time period, the average percent of GDP that we've raised in revenue is 17.3%. It doesn't change much because our tax code is so complex and as a result so difficult to comply with. It is notable that even after the tax cuts from 2018, the last 3 years has been above that average, 17.9, 19.6%. Last year was 18.2%. So increasing tax rates is not going to work. I would say dramatically, and I mean dramatically simplifying, but also use the term rationalizing. Our tax code is completely irrational. We have different forms of tax rates on different kinds of incomes. I mean, income ought to be income. From my standpoint, it ought to be based on cash generation. There's so many ways of simplifying this, and right there, you would dramatically increase compliance because, again, if tax rates are kept low, it's easy to comply with. There's the solution. Let's quit talking about sending more agents to harass Americans, and let's talk about the real solution, which is simplification and rationalization. Would any of you like to comment on that?
I would just like to comment. Professor Sarin's chart that was put up by the chairman is a fascinating chart. I would differ from Senator Romney in that it's true that modern businesses got complex. A lot of what drives that chart, frankly, is corporations making extremely sophisticated structures to avoid tax. They don't try to do things that are illegal. It's just that the tax code is so gray, they push the limits, and that's what I experienced at 5 years of PwC. That's what they try to do, push to the limit of a very gray code.
Senator Merkley.